I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Banjo-Kazooie does something right with its levels. Thematically, they're all unique and interesting. They don't feel too big or too small. There's a lot of variety in the levels, having big, sprawling open areas or clusters of smaller rooms. Navigation is almost always made easy with memorable landmarks. I actually believe, and don't tell anyone I said this, that Banjo-Kazooie was the greatest 3D platformer of its era. Even better than Mario 64. But is every level a banger though? Okay, like yes, but also no. Do you ever love something, but at the same time, you also kind of hate it? That is me with some of these levels, and you're about to find out which ones I'm talking about. Brace yourself because the hot takes are incoming. Piping hot takes. Hot takes so hot that I've actually been told that my top level pick for Banjo-Kazooie is a level that literally no one else likes. But we'll get to that later. Ranking every single Banjo-Kazooie level. Let's start from the start, because that's the best place to start. Spiral Mountain does not get put on here because it's not really a level so much as just a starting area with an optional tutorial. Moving on. Grunty's Lair is also not a level. I mean, kind of. I guess it's kind of a level. I mean, it's not really a world. Whatever, it's not on this tier list, so we're skipping it too. Mumbo's Mountain, however, is on this list, and it is what I would call the perfect starting level. It isn't huge, the landmarks are clear, and it functions very nicely as a secondary tutorial, where you put all of what Bottles has taught you into practice. The layout is very nice. You have a mountain on your right as you enter the level, a small little river to explore, a bit of land on the other side, a small bit of ruins, a jungle-like grove, a termite hill, and a village at the mountaintop. It's just nice, and while it's not flashy, it's not boring either. Conga serves as a nice little boss, and Big Butt exists to put a bit of fear in you in case you get too comfy in the level. If I had to knock Mumbo's Mountain for something, I'd say that it could be a little bit bigger, and I really don't like the termite hill climb. Those termite dudes guarding the items in the middle are really annoying, and they're kind of incentive to learn the speedrun strat to just talon trot jump your way up the ramp. That's kind of it for critiques though. Otherwise, I think Mumbo's Mountain also functions as a nice little intro for Mumbo Jumbo, who is someone you will be running into later on in various other levels. Mumbo's Mountain is a good time, so I will put it into very heckin' good. Treasure Trove Cove is up next, and this level is almost good, except for one crucial mechanic, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. This level is the tropical beach level of the game, and as such, there is a lot of water. Some people may ask why that's a bad thing. I have a one-word answer for that. Snacker. Snacker the shark is an enemy that teleports to Banjo's location if he so much as puts a single toe into the water in, well, most of the level. There are some water areas that are safe, but not many. Any bit of water connected to the wide ocean is subject to snackers showing up. So if you fail a jump and land in the open ocean, you're gonna get bit by snacker. He will show up to chase you, the music will shift to a very scarier kind of tone to indicate he has arrived, and you gotta book it to land as soon as possible. Snacker can be temporarily destroyed by Kazooie farting eggs onto him, or by the Wonder Wing ability, which you won't have by the time you first arrive at this level, but Snacker always comes back maybe after a minute. And then, as soon as he's back at biting your toes, making your life very miserable anytime you're in the water. What's even worse is that this level taunts you at the very beginning by spawning you on a dock above a Jinjo who needs your help in the water. It's definitely there to bait you into jumping in immediately so Snacker can have, well, a little snack. It's a bummer because this level is pretty good otherwise. The music is upbeat and exciting, the level design is really fluid and nice, there's cool landmarks, you get to learn to fly here, it's just a good time to be had. Treasure Trove Cove would honestly be like A or B tier if it wasn't for Snacker, and if it wasn't for my generalized anxiety disorder diagnosis, but given that Snacker is always there waiting and watching, nah. Treasure Trove Cove goes into meh. Sorry, not sorry. Next up on our list is Clanker's Cavern, and I'm sure I'll disappoint absolutely nobody with this take. Clanker's Cavern and, as we'll discuss later, Rusty Bucket Bay are the only levels that really go against my previous statement where I said that each level felt different. I feel like Clanker's and Rusty Bucket Bay have this sort of industrial steel vibe that makes their levels feel a bit more dull, and it has a little bit more theme crossover between those two levels than, say, some of the other levels. Rare had this thing about industrial levels in their Super Nintendo and N64 games. Donkey Kong Country, Banjo-Tooie, and Donkey Kong 64 also had industrial-themed worlds, and while I recognize I'm biased because I just don't vibe with the aesthetic, it feels doubly bad that we have two of those worlds in this game. It feels triply bad that Clanker's Cavern's main mechanic is that you have to swim a lot. Like a lot. And those swimming controls suck. To make things worse, when you're walking around, you have to walk around on tedious pipe walkways, and there's these chompa jump scare enemies that are popping out of the walls. There's also this kind of dreary vibe that just kind of makes you feel a little ugh. And then there's, you know, the thalassophobia-inducing NPC you meet very quickly inside this level. It's just not great. The level centers around Clanker being the major landmark, and that does cause some problems because everything else is relatively samey. This is the one level where I feel like they did not do the best job at making things feel easy to navigate. While there's an interesting idea happening here, I feel like this level could have benefited from a little bit more open areas that could kind of offset the like gloomy palette and just make the level look more interesting. Since Clanker is the major landmark, really the level just centers around you going down various small pipes into different little smaller areas of the level, and it's just kind of not that exciting. If they hadn't done that, making swimming just feel a bit better would have been nice, but this was the N64 era where there was some sort of belief that swimming just had to be stressful and annoying to control. So I guess I get why this level ended up the way that it did. Clanker's Cavern goes into get this out of my sight. And next up we have Bubblegloop Swamp. And here is where we likely have the hottest of hot takes, because while I know this level has some irritating segments to it, it's my favorite level. It's undeniable peak. And let me explain why. Bubblegloop Swamp should be a level that I don't like because, to be honest, when it comes to N64 games and vibes, swamp aesthetics aren't really my thing. I prefer forest or water levels when it comes to 3D platformers. This is a statement that's going to be really funny in hindsight, by the way. A lot of swamps are given this sort of creepy vibe or just kind of grungy feeling, and while Bubblegloop gives off that same grungy, dirty vibe, it's still visually engaging. And that's impressive given that the color palette is kind of more on the dreary side. But Bubblegloop's visuals aren't the only thing that's great about this level. You have good music, a layout that's neither too complex nor too simple, genuine variety in terms of collecting jiggies, and arguably the best transformation in the game, the crocodile, which does allow you to bite enemies, gets you ignored by the piranhas, and makes you feel a little less helpless as you explore. You also get to play the anxiety-inducing collect-a-thon game with Mr. Vile, whose minigame song is honestly a massive banger. Also, this level has Tip Tup, and if you're a Diddy Kong Racing fan like I am, you probably also appreciate his cameo in this game. The big annoyance in Bubblegloop is honestly the piranhas, which don't have models but will gladly bite your toes if you dare to take a dip into the water. kind of like Snacker, but they attack you every couple of seconds. They're not chasing you, which I think makes them less stressful to deal with somehow. Small fun fact, did you know the piranhas in this game actually resemble the piranhas in Donkey Kong Country? And another small fact, the sharks in Donkey Kong Country actually kind of resemble Snacker too. We love the Rareware gaming universe. I just think Bubblegloop Swamp is neat. It takes a concept that I'd ordinarily be uninterested in and makes it fun. And it's wild to me that out of all of these levels, apparently it gets the most hate. Have y'all seen these last levels in the game? No spoilers, but yeah. Top of the list for good old Bubblegloop, it goes directly into the best, and no, I am not sorry about this at all. Next on our list is another level that gives me the warm fuzzies, despite it being super duper cold. Freezeezy Peak is easily my second favorite level in the entire game. The winter and Christmas theme just gives off this sort of old N64 classic ice level charm. The music is great. I mean, I'm gonna be saying that for basically every level because Grant Kirkhope creates only bangers, in my humble opinion, and also just is an icon, an absolute icon. Freezeezy Peak is also an icon. I adore that level. The funny thing about Freezeezy Peak is that I used to hate it. Look, when we were starting out, I think we all inadvertently beak-bombed ourselves to death at some point. It's embarrassing and silly when it happens, but after mastering that technique, this level becomes so fun. You get to save a family of polar bears Christmas. You get to turn into a walrus and demolish a deadbeat dad. You get to protect little Christmas lights or watch them get horribly devoured in front of you. And you get to dive bomb snowmen. What's there to not love? Okay, the Sir Slushes do sometimes have really good aim. The freezing water doing damage to Banjo is kind of annoying, especially after Bubblegloop already having the same mechanic. Falling off the giant snowman is both painful physically and emotionally, and the races against Boggy can be really stressful because of the rubber banding issue. But honestly, it's a good time otherwise. I love Freezeezy Peak. It's not peak because that's Bubblegloop, but it's a close second. Into very heckin' good ya go, Freezeezy. Up next we have Gobi's Valley, which is, and I'm gonna say it, a better version of DK64's Angry Aztec. They're thematically similar, but having recently played DK64, I was blown away at how empty that world felt compared to Gobi's. And while I do like Gobi's Valley a lot, it's a level that can definitely be frustrating sometimes. I don't super enjoy the Turbo Talon Trot ability, which is learned in Gobi's Valley and is highly utilized in this area. There's also an annoying memory game that I'm just kind of horrible at because I have ADHD and look, my short-term memory is laughably bad at times, so I don't love getting that jiggy. But honestly, other than that, I think Gobi's is a great level. Gobi himself may be a bit of a jerk, but the level is decently spaced out with just enough rooms to feel like you're diving into an old ruin, but also not so much that you just get horribly lost. I think it and Freezeezy Peak have an upbeat feeling to it that really energizes you and encourages you to explore, and I like that about those levels in particular. When I enter this level, I feel pushed to just jump in and have a good time, and I think that's exactly what the devs intended. My favorite part of this level is unclogging Jinxie's nose. I never thought about how silly that was until I was older. Imagine your nose being stuffed up, so you ask a bird to shoot eggs up your nostril. What if the egg gets stuck? Isn't that a bit dangerous? I'm probably overthinking it. Gobi's Valley goes into very heckin' good. Next up on our list is Mad Monster Mansion. Now, I don't super love spooky themed stuff in video games. I got traumatized by that stupid piano in Super Mario 64, and I'm too whinny to play most horror games. Mad Monster Mansion is a level of spooky that feels fun and more Weenie Hut Jr. friendly, so I appreciate that a lot. The level is a bit of a maze though, and we'll talk about that later. Overall, I do think it's a decent level, and a cursory glance around it would lend one to think that it's probably one of the best levels in the game. However, for me, that's not really the case. The part that really drags down Mad Monster Mansion, for me at least, is the number of small rooms you have to explore for more collectibles. While Gobi's Valley really nailed the amount of these kind of smaller rooms, I feel like Mad Monster Mansion, while I get why there's so many rooms, is because of the theme of the level, it's just a lot. It's a bit much. Usually I forget about 1 or 2 of these rooms when I do a run of this level just because there's so many and they feel a little too easy to mix up, at least for me. You have to resource manage a little bit with this level as well, because collectibles are finite, even things like golden feathers, and yet there's enemies that are untouchable without very specific moves that require specific resources. You just have to be a pinch more careful, and that makes me a little bit nervous when I go there. Oh yeah, and there's those awful chompas all over the place. Like more so than usual. Hate those guys. There is a really good transformation in this level, however, and that is the pumpkin transformation. It's adorable, and you can get flushed down a toilet with it. I love that. Unfortunately, there is just something about this level that I don't vibe with, and it's kind of a level that I sometimes forget exists. Maybe it's all the complaints I've already listed out, or this level's maze-like nature. I don't really want to give the impression that the level is bad though, because I don't think it is. Some pros for this level are that, of course, the music is fantastic. The pumpkin transformation is also just really fun and innovative. And there's these goofy pots that everyone thought for the longest time were saying something bad instead of a spooky thank you, and it still kind of makes me laugh to this day. Sometimes I hear that thing that people thought they were saying. Some of the set pieces and landmarks for this level are really good. I don't love that the level's hub is kind of a maze and that some of the landmarks are obscured, but I give it a bit of a pass because it kind of matches the theme. You know, I'm really kind of surprised that there was no real big boss fight in this level. I feel like there was definitely material for one. Who even owns this mansion anyways? Grunty? Captain Black Eye? Never thought about it. Mad Monster Mansion goes into decent. Next up, we have... oh no. A notorious level for very good reason. Take my confusing room complaint about Mad Monster Mansion and just triple it. Rusty Bucket Bay has way too many small rooms, sometimes accessed in ways you wouldn't think to access them. The level's hub itself is not necessarily sprawling, but it's marked with some annoying features. Due to pollution, you have a breath meter even when you're swimming with your head above water because the oil is, stinky or something, and Banjo will die of cringe if you swim for too long. Also, for no apparent reason, Snacker is back, but only in a certain corner of the polluted waters. But he doesn't die, despite swimming in literal filth. Make it make sense, Rareware. I've already complained in 2 videos at least about how I find industrial aesthetics to be visually less appealing, especially in these older 3D platformers, and Rusty Bucket Bay is really no different. But let's be honest, we can't discuss Rusty Bucket Bay without discussing the engine room, an infamous room within the level that will cause you to die with one wrong button press as you navigate its turning gears and platforms. And dying in Banjo-Kazooie, at least in the original version, is brutal. You lose all level progress except for Jiggies and a few other small collectibles like Mumbo tokens, meaning you have to recollect all the notes and Jinjos again. It's really, really difficult, and the punishment for failure is astronomically brutal. To top it all off, I just don't like that Rusty Bucket Bay shares a similar level design method as Clanker's Cavern. Not only is it industrial, but it's grimy, and the hub features a large central figure in water with smaller branches going every which way. Rusty Bucket Bay is just Clanker's Cavern, but worse in a lot of ways, and I don't like it. Them adding Rusty Bucket Bay as a level is legit just so baffling to me, especially knowing what other levels were cut from this game. We could have had something that felt a bit more unique and a bit fresher. I know a lot of those concepts were utilized in other games, but come on, no lava level in a 3D platformer? That's still really wild to me. They even left the hub for the lava level in Grunty's lair. What a bunch of teases. So, Rusty Bucket Bay goes into get this out of my sight, next to Clanker's, since they want to be so similar. And here we have our final level, and that is Click Clock Wood. A lot of people adore this level, and I used to consider it as my favorite for a long while. However, as I've gotten older and maybe rustier at this game, I gotta say, I don't think I love Click Clock Wood anymore. I don't think I hate it either, but I don't think I love it. Thematically, Click Clock Wood is interesting because it's a very vertical level, but you have 4 versions of it depending on the season door you walk through. And that is such a neat idea, and it feels really ahead of its time. The problem is the level's verticality, which is the bulk of the level. It's all centered around a single tree, and you have to climb that bad boy over and over again in every single version of the level to collect what you need to progress to the game's end. And man, it's just not that great after the novelty's worn off. And then, say you're climbing and you fall off. You'll lose most of your HP, and don't forget what happens if you die, especially in the original version. Now, there's some good in Click Clock Wood. The music will stay rooted into your skull for the next 5 business days after you play this level. Feeding the baby bird is gruesomely cute, and you get to turn into a bee, which is great and totally is never abused in any speedruns to collect jiggies in the overworld because it has a nose that clips through walls. Use that information as you will. There's also an NPC named Nabnuts. This is a PG to PG-13 channel, so I won't laugh. Out loud at least. I think Click Clock Wood is a fine level, but I wish more changed with the seasons. And I wish the tree wasn't such a pain to climb. It's going into meh on this tier list because I have fallen off of that stupid tree one too many times. And that does it for ranking every single Banjo-Kazooie level. I plan to do a follow-up video for Banjo-Tooie after I replay it. It's been a solid 13 years since I last booted up that game, and I know it's on NSO now, so I may as well boot it up and give it another playthrough. I'm planning to play Tooie during my subathon this upcoming March 2025. It'll be part of an event stream, and if you've been watching my channel for a bit on Twitch, you probably know it's on the horizon very, very soon. If you're interested, consider dropping a follow over there on the Funny Purple site. I've been asked if I plan to play Grunty's Revenge and Nuts and Bolts. I do have a copy of both of those games, but getting them set up to play on stream is a bit of a different story. I will do my best. But I do remember vaguely I played Grunty's Revenge when I was younger, and Nuts and Bolts kinda landed in my lap after a really long convoluted chain of events IRL, but I honestly never booted it up. I may try them both out in the future, and maybe I'll even do videos on them too. Before we end today's video, Creature wanted me to tell you guys that he wants to talk about his favorite and least favorite level. So take it away, little guy.
My favorite level is Click Clock Wood because I love seeing Amalia fall off the tree and go splat. My least favorite level is Bubblegloop Swamp because it has too much water and not enough cheese fries. Also because Amalia likes it.
Some people just live to be contrarians. You get to save a family of polar bears Christmas. You get to turn into a walrus and demolish a deadbeat dad. For the record, I meant in a sled race.